Hey boys and girls, if you really want to learn all about the equipment on a fire engine, you just have to watch Firefighter George and Fire Engines, Volumes 1 and 2. I will show you how every piece of equipment is used in real, live action. And if you love trains like I do, then Firefighter George and Steam Trains and Firefighter George and Today's Mighty Trains will teach you how these mighty engines work. I will show you how the coal burns to make the trains go, and how the circus animals ride on the trains. And if you love airplanes, then you just have to watch Firefighter George and Amazing Airplanes, where we get in the cockpit of an F-15 fighter jet. Learn plane safety, learn how planes fly, and salute the Blue Angels. Startsmarter videos teach you how to enjoy these big machines safely. This video has 2 lessons. Let's start lesson 1. Hey boys and girls, I'm Firefighter George, and oh boy do I have a special day planned for you. Today, we're going to learn all about the steam engine. Now steam engines started pulling trains about 150 years ago, and they pulled trains up until about 40 years ago. Then the diesel electric trains started to pull trains because they were bigger and faster and safer. But today, just the steam locomotives. Now we're going to get in the cab with the engineer and the fireman and learn about their levers and their knobs and buttons and how they make this big locomotive go down the track. We're going to watch the black smoke coming out of the smokestack at the top. We're going to hear the whistle blowing and the bell ringing. We're going to ride the train with Principal Melvin's class and have fun. Oh, I can't take it. Let's go join Principal Melvin right now and get on the train and take a ride. Come on, boys and girls.
George, how are you today?
Good, Principal Melvin. How are you doing today?
Doing well.
Hey, boys and girls, how are you doing today?
Good.
Good. Are you ready to learn all about the trains today?
Yes.
Really good. Now, remember one thing. Trains can be very, very dangerous. We always need to be very careful when we're in a rail yard like this, that we look both ways when we cross the tracks to make sure a train's not coming from one of the other directions. Right?
Right.
Okay, now, if we're going to ride a train today, what's the first thing we need to do?
Buy tickets!
We have to buy a ticket. So we're going to go into the train station and buy our tickets. And then we're going to come out and look at the steam locomotive. And then we're going to get on the train and go through the tunnels and over the bridges and have fun. So y'all ready to get started?
Yeah!
Let's go. Come on. All right, look both ways. Okay. Come on. Here's another track. Let's look both ways. Come on, boys and girls. Let's go ride the Tennessee Valley Railroad. Hey, boys and girls. This is where you buy the tickets. Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you. We'd like to buy some tickets today to ride the train.
Okay, how many do you need?
Let's see. I have Principal Melvin and Firefighter George. That's 2 adults.
All right.
And I have Justice and Scarlett and Sarah and Amira and Shelly. Who else do I have? And Czar. So I have 6 children.
All right.
Now we pay for it.
There you are.
Thank you, Thomas, so much.
Thank you. Enjoy the ride.
Thank you. Now let's go learn about the steam locomotive. Okay, boys and girls. Now this is the steam locomotive we're going to ride today. Now who knows, how much does this steam locomotive weigh?
400,000 pounds.
Right, 400,000 pounds. That's a lot of weight, isn't it? And who knows how much a normal freight train weighs if it's pulling like 100 cars?
12 million pounds.
12 million pounds, boys and girls. That is a lot of weight. That means if the engineer sees you playing on the tracks and he hits the emergency brake, he just can't stop. It's going to take him a very long time to stop. Who knows how long it's going to take?
1 mile.
It could take up to 1 mile to stop the train. That's why Firefighter George never, ever, ever wants to see you on the tracks. Because the engineer just can't stop, can he? No.
Did you hear how loud that train is? Yeah, it hurts your ears. But all trains aren't that loud, are they? Subway trains aren't that loud at all. So you can never play on train tracks because you can't trust your ears. You have to learn to trust your eyes. You have to look both ways, and you never want to be on train tracks for any longer than it takes to cross them, okay? Okay.
Right. All right, boys and girls. Now our train is getting ready to go. That one just left, but we have to get going. So let's go get on our train. Hurry, come on. The conductor always says all aboard to tell us we can get on the train. Now let's go ride the train, boys and girls. Come on. All right, boys and girls, everybody get in your seats. Now remember, when the train's going, we always have to stay in our seats, right? Because we never know when the train's going to have to make an emergency stop. Now you can get up and go to the bathroom or walk around if you need to. But we always want to stay seated when we can, and you can watch the cows going by and going into the tunnel out the window and all the scenery out there. So we can do that, okay? Great, let's sit down and have some fun. Hey, boys and girls. Now we always ring the bell before we start to move, so everyone will know that it's time to leave. And the firemen make sure the firebox has plenty of coal to heat the steam to make the big locomotive go. Now the engineer will pull back the throttle, letting the steam go from the boiler into the cylinder box. This makes the pistons move the wheels forward. The firebox must always stay red hot, so the firemen must continue to shovel coal in while the engine is moving. Only trains go into tunnels. not people. Hey, boys and girls, we're getting ready to go into the tunnel. It's going to get really dark outside. Here it comes. How dark it is out there. You can barely see. The engineer makes the train go fast or slow by moving the throttle and must always keep his eyes on the tracks ahead for trouble. The fireman helps the engineer look out for trouble too and moves his levers to add water to the boiler to make the steam. Let's watch the whistle blow. Now we are coming into the station. So the engineer will use his brakes to slow the big locomotive down and to make the train stop.
Here we go. Now, everyone knows that trains can only go one direction on the track, right? Well, now we're at the end of the line. How will the train get pointed the other direction so it can go back the other way?
There's a big machine that turns it around.
A big machine turns it around. Well, you know, you're absolutely right.
That's right, boys and girls. At the end of this rail line is what's called a turntable. And it's a big machine, just like Shelley said, that the locomotive slowly pulls onto, and then it turns the train around so it's pointing in the other direction. Now let's go take a look at how it works. Come on. First, the locomotive pulls onto the turntable. Then the operator turns the train around. See the wheels underneath the turntable turning? When it is turned around, the big locomotive pulls off, so it can go back in the other direction. Okay, boys and girls, let's learn a little bit about steam engines. Will you hold my hat for me, Neil? Thank you. Now, who knows what this piece of equipment is called?
A tender.
It's called a tender. And this piece of equipment goes behind the steam engine, and what do you think it carries?
Water.
It carries water. It's going to use the water to make steam to make the locomotive run. What else does it carry?
Coal.
Coal. It's got to carry some kind of fuel to make the water hot to make the steam. This steam engine uses coal. Other engines use wood or oil. Now let's go forward. Come here, let me show you this. Up here is where the firemen and the engineer sit. And they're going to run all the controls to make the locomotive move down the track. We're going to go in there in a second. Let me show you something else. Come on down here. Up here is where the water is going to be stored when it comes from the tender. Now the firemen will release a lever which will drive water from the tender into the engine. The water tank surrounds the what? Water surrounds the firebox. Now the firebox is where you're going to shovel all of the coal or the wood to heat up the water to make the steam. We need steam and lots of it to make the train run. Now when the water is boiled into a steam, it's going to go into the boiler, and that's at the very top up there. So the boiler is going to trap all of the steam. Now when the engineer wants the train to go, he's going to release the throttle and start to make the steam leave the boiler through pipes. Come on, come on, come on. It's going to go through pipes and it's going to come down into this big cylinder box right here. Now, once it's in the cylinder box, the steam is going to go into the pistons, and the pistons are going to go chug, 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 and that's where you get the chugging noise from. And then the steam is going to be released from the cylinder and pistons up through this pipe and out of the smokestack at the top. And that's how the steam gets from the engine to make the pistons go from the tender. Now, I got some other questions for you. Who sees this right here? What is that brass piece up there? Yes?
The bell.
That is the bell. And they ring the bell to warn people that they're coming down the road. What's right next to the bell?
Whistle.
That's the whistle. And the whistle is what's going to let everyone way down far away know that the locomotive's coming and to get out of the way. The other dome up top is the sand dome. It stores all the sand to spray on the train tracks when the tracks get slippery. Now let's go jump in the cab and learn about the tender. Come on.
Let's go. Let's go. Come on, Dad.
Steam locomotives need lots and lots of water. They put the water into a big tank in the tender from the water tower. When the engine is, the water is pumped into the boiler where it's heated up to make the steam. Let's watch this big locomotive get ready to go. The steam is white, and the smoke from the coal is gray. Can you tell which ones are steam and which ones are smoke? The engineer uses the throttle to make the engine go. The engineer pulls the whistle cord to let everyone know he is coming and to get out of the way. The fireman steps on a pedal to open the doors of the firebox. Now the steam locomotive is coming back into the train station. Let's start lesson 2 now for older junior engineers. Hey boys and girls, this is Engineer Tim. He runs the steam engine here at Tweetsie. He's going to tell us how all of the controls and levers work inside of the cab. Thanks, Engineer Tim.
All right. First of all, this right here is the throttle. This lever right here will release the steam in the steam dome to go to the cylinders. When you can regulate the steam flow, make it go full power or real slow with this lever. This lever right here is the reversing lever, also known as the Johnson bar. When I pull it back toward me, it'll make the locomotive go in reverse. If I push it straight up, it's just like putting your mama's car in park. It won't go nowhere. Then for normal operations here, we always go forward, so leave it in forward motion. You pull it back for less steam. That way you don't have to run, say, in first gear all the time. Then this lit cord right here is the whistle cord. It signals the conductor and the people around the train that the train's going to move or answer certain questions that the conductor may give us. This lever right here is the brake for the locomotive and tender. It's the only thing it controls. This brake lever right here controls the coaches behind the tender. You work these together to make the ride smoother for the folks riding. This lever right here is the sander.
Awesome.
It applies sand to the rails. On a slick day, it'll give you a little bit of traction. There you hear it putting sand down. Then this gauge over here is a steam gauge. It tells me how much steam pressure we have. Right now we have a little over 160 pounds of steam. It takes between 150 and 185 to operate this locomotive
Wow.
the entire time. And I believe that's basically it.
That's great, Engineer Tim. Thank you so much for teaching us how the locomotive works. Now, everyone knows I'm Firefighter George. Well, this is Fireman Scott. Now, Fireman Scott is different than Firefighter George. Firefighter George puts fires out. But Fireman Scott makes sure the fire is going in the locomotive to make the steam so the locomotive can keep going forward. Now, Fireman Scott's going to tell us about all of his responsibilities and how he keeps the locomotive safe.
All right, basically, this locomotive right here uses about 3 to 4 tons of coal a day and 4,000 gallons of water to convert water into steam. Now, basically what I do right here is I step on this pedal right here, boys, and then I open the fire door, and I shovel some coal in there, and I shut it. I gotta get the good, even fire to make that fire hot, to boil that water to make steam, to push those pistons out there. And then I'll go over here and check the water. And if I'm a little low, I turn this valve on, and then I turn this lever down, and it injects water into the boiler. And then, when we're pulling back into town, I pull this bell right here to let people know that we're coming in.
Awesome.
And that's basically all I do.
Okay, boys and girls, so Fireman Scott makes sure the fire stays going inside of the firebox, which makes all the steam, which keeps the locomotive going forward. And he also makes sure the locomotive stays safe. He helps the engineer. Now let's go learn about another part of the locomotive. Come on. All right, boys and girls, now we're at the back of the train. This is Conductor Scott. He's in charge of the whole train. He's going to tell us about his responsibilities. Thanks, Conductor Scott.
Hi there.
Hey.
My number one responsibility is the safety of all the passengers on this train.
Excellent.
Making sure people ride safely, get on and off safely, and that every time the train is moving, that everyone is out of the way and safe.
Great.
My second number one responsibility is the safety of the operation of the train. And every day I check the brakes, all the operating procedures of the train, couplers, sound equipment, safety chains, and things of that nature.
Excellent. So he is in charge to make sure everybody stays safe, boys and girls. But number two, he's in charge of the whole train, even the engineer. Conductor Scott says when the train goes and when it stops and where it goes and checks out all the equipment to make sure it's working properly. Thanks so much, Conductor Scott.
You're welcome.
Let's go look at another part of the train. Come on, Quentin Coley.
Have a nice ride.
Thank you. Junior Engineer James is ringing the bell, so everyone will know that it is time to go. And now, Engineer Tim pulls back on the throttle and uses the sander to help make the train move forward. Trains use high bridges to help them go over rivers and valleys. coming back into the station, ringing its loud bell to let everyone know to stand clear. Let's all wave goodbye to Conductor Scott. Okay, boys and girls, now just because you see rust on the railroad tracks or weeds growing up in between the tracks, that doesn't mean that no trains go on that track. Freight trains don't go on any schedule. They just go down the tracks, whatever tracks they want, whenever they want, okay? So just because you think, oh, no trains ever go on this track, don't believe that. Trains can come down any track at any time.
Well, so since the tracks belong to the railroad company, there's no walking down the tracks and there's no walking into the tunnels because the tunnels only have enough room for the train. It doesn't have any room for you.
Now, number two, let's look around here. We're at the rail yard. This is private property. Someone else owns this rail yard. The railroad company owns this. Now, you wouldn't like it if someone came into your house that you didn't know, would you? No. Well, the railroad company doesn't want people they don't know walking on their tracks. It's private property, boys and girls, and that's illegal, and you can get put in jail for that. So we never, ever, ever want to go on the tracks, right?
Right!
Okay, now let's go inside. Come on. Every day before the train goes to work, the firemen make sure everything is working properly. He adds oil to the train to make sure all the gears work smoothly. Once everything has been checked out, the engineer will pull back on the throttle so the engine can go forward. Locomotive needs to get onto the right track, so the brakeman throws the switch, moving the tracks over. 3 blasts of the whistle means the engine is going to back up, so the engineer pulls back on the Johnson bar. This way, the locomotive can couple up with the passenger cars. The locomotive slowly backs up until the cars couple together with a bang. Now we hear 2 whistle blasts. This means the train is going to go forward. Can you see the red caboose we are passing on the other track? Fireman Vince steps on the pedal to open the doors of the firebox so he can shovel the coal in. is going under our bridge. Oh no, look out for the smoke! More coal for the firebox. Okay, boys and girls, now sometimes you get sick, don't you?
Yeah.
And you have to go to the doctor.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes trains get sick too, or they break down, and they need to be fixed. Well, this is where they go to get fixed. Let's come on, walk into the repair shop with Firefighter George. Look at this. This is how the train goes onto the tracks. This ridge right here keeps the train from slipping off the tracks. And down here you can see how it fits right on the railroad track. But this is why Principal Melvin and I never want to see you on the train tracks. These big train wheels would roll right over you. Always stay off of the tracks.
You're an inch taller than me. It's squishy, Daddy. What is this big train being fixed for?
This is one of our big steam locomotives, one of the old ones, and it's undergoing a complete restoration. One day we hope to have it back in operation. It takes a lot of time and money and work. Would you like to help us?
Yeah.
We could use your help.
And by restoring the trains, boys and girls, we keep the trains safe. That's the main part. If a train is sick or needs to be repaired, then it's not safe for boys and girls to ride on. So we repair them here so they can stay safe. Come on. Okay, boys and girls, this is a clamshell crane. Who knows what it's used for?
To put coal on the trains.
Right. They use this big crane to scoop up coal, and then they use it to bring it over to the tender, and they drop it into the tender so the steam train can have coal to burn. Now let's go watch the operator use this crane to pick up the coal. Come on, here we go. First, Operator George moves the clamshell crane into position with his control. Next, he drops the big clamshell right into the coal and scoops up a bucket full. Now he moves his levers to lift up the clamshell and moves the coal over to the tender. He then pulls the lever back and all the coal comes falling out. Bye, George! Okay, boys and girls, we have 3 more lessons to learn before we get back on the train. Whenever you come to a railroad crossing, I want you to stop. I want you to look both directions. I want you to listen for a train. Then you can cross, and then you will live.
Absolutely. In fact, when you come to a railroad crossing, I want you to only cross at approved crossing. That's where the ground has been raised so that it's more flush, more even with the track, and you don't run the risk of tripping or falling there. I want you to also make sure that when you're crossing the railroad tracks, don't step on the metal part because your foot might slip. You know, that train rubs it really smooth and so it's slick. So you don't want your foot to slip and then you fall and then you not get up in time before the train comes.
Right. And another thing, just because you're not standing on the railroad track, that doesn't mean you're safe. Sometimes trains overhang the railroad tracks by 3, even 4 feet. So if you're standing near the tracks, they still might hit you. Or the suction of the train might pull you into the train. So always stand back 14, 20 feet and let the train go past.
The third thing is, speaking of trains going by, when a train goes by, you don't want to jump across the tracks right away. You want to wait a minute. Why?
Because another train might be coming by.
Absolutely, Amira, that's exactly right. There could be another train following behind the train that just went by, or there could be another train going the opposite direction that you didn't see or hear because you were paying attention to the first train. So you want to pause for a minute, stop, look, listen, and then cross the track.
Okay now, boys and girls, the railroad crossing sign says no trains are coming. So let's walk down the road and get on the train. Come on. Let's stop. We look, we listen, it's safe. Now let's go on. Over the tracks. Very good. Let's go get on the train. The conductor is checking his watch.
Oh, boys!
All right, let's go on, boys and girls. Here we go. It's time to get back on the train and go home.
Tickets, please.
Oh, boys and girls, the conductor's collecting our tickets.
Go.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Conductor, what do the holes in the tickets mean?
They mean, if you look at the date here, that tells you when you traveled, and it also tells where you got on the train.
Here comes the tunnel again, boys and girls. Oh, here we go. We're coming out of the tunnel. Here it is. Yay! Awesome. Don't forget, the firebox needs lots and lots of coal. Now we are back at our station, and it is time to go home. Today we visited a railroad museum, and we had special permission to look at the trains and equipment on the tracks. At home, remember, tracks are for trains, not for kids. Walking or playing on railroad tracks or in a rail yard or even in a tunnel is illegal, and it's very, very dangerous. Stay off, stay away, stay alive. When you need to cross the railroad tracks, look for a designated crossing where there is a road or a sidewalk. That is the only place you should cross the railroad tracks. Remember to look both ways and listen for a train so you will live. And if you need to wait for the train to go by, stand way back from the tracks. When the last car or train has gone past, wait and look carefully in both directions. There could be another train coming from either direction.
Thank you.
Startsmarter's sincerest appreciation to Operation Lifesaver, train safety for children, the Tennessee Valley Railroad, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Tweetsie Railroad, Boone, North Carolina, the North Carolina Transportation Museum, Spencer, North Carolina, and the Southeastern Railway Museum, Duluth, Georgia.